Hello again, I'm Dr. Laura Jagged, and you're listening to episode 30 of the How to Life podcast. If you chose to listen to this episode, the title may have grabbed your attention. For me, I like the no fear part. I'm a big fan of dispelling fear, and we have fears about all kinds of stuff. I used to be really afraid of appliances breaking down. I was always suspicious and afraid that it was going to be a huge expense, and then there was the fact that I had no idea who to call. But over the years, I've learned a thing or two, mostly by trial and error, and I'm happy to report that many times whatever your problem is, you can often fix it yourself, or it can be fixed pretty easily and not so costly. But it was stressful for me being in the dark about that. I wish I had a handful of information like what you're about to hear from Chad Phillipp. Chad has been an appliance technician for many years, as well as an instructor at Fred's Appliance Academy, which is a school that turns out skilled appliance techs for major companies and manufacturers, as well as local companies. By the way, this is a field that's not so dense at the moment, so there is tremendous opportunity for employment. Like last episode, if you're at a what am I going to do with my life point, here's another option and some attractive benefits that you might consider. This can definitely be a solid path for you. Chad will expound on that more at the end of the show, but first we're going to play a little game that I made up on the spot called Name That Problem. I'm going to give Chad an appliance issue, and he will give us a diagnosis and how to fix it. It's fun. You're going to like it. And you'll definitely learn a thing or two. I had so much fun on this interview. I hope you enjoy it too. Hi, Chad, and welcome to the How to Life podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it very much.
Before we get started, please introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name's Chad. I work in the greater Cleveland, Ohio area for a appliance repair company called Fred's Appliance. Spent over 14 years on the road doing in-home service, and we basically came across one of your videos on YouTube about the microwave, if any of your listeners or viewers have seen that. And we just thought it'd be interesting to have a chat with you. You know, it's a very common thing to happen, and we got a chuckle, and we just kind of want to reach out.
For those of you who don't know what Chad's referencing, I also have a YouTube channel where I have little short video tutorials, 3 to 5 minutes, about kind of random basic life skills. And also situations that happen in the real world, either to me or my children. I'm like, let me make a video about this so that I can share it with everyone. The one that Chad saw was my microwave turntable stopped turning. And it has to turn so it can heat properly. So I had no idea what to do. So I called my appliance guy friend, and he came over and he saw that I had the turntable on-off button was not engaged. So he just pressed a button and it turned on, and I felt very stupid about that. But I made a video because I'm sure I'm not the only one that this happened to. And I guess Chad got a chuckle out of it because he knows. You've had that experience before?
It is very prominent in the industry. I can't tell you how many times that I've gone out and just literally pushed a button for something. The most common one would probably be dishwashers because they have a child safety feature on them. And typically the complaint will be, hey, I push the buttons and all it does is flash. It won't start. We'll go out and yep, you push and hold the child lock, it unlocks, and off we go. And, it makes people feel silly, but we're only human. We make mistakes. This is how we learn, and they're not going to do it again, typically, especially if they paid for the service. It's definitely implanted in your head somewhere.
A lot of people have fears about appliances. I mean, I do. I don't know anything about appliances. I buy them, I plug them in, I expect them to work. And then I am always shocked and somewhat outraged when they go out, even if it's years down the line.
Yes, it's a very fast-changing world in the appliances. If we go back a number of years, the market wasn't so saturated. If you go back 20 years, you had your common household branch, Frigidaire, GE, Maytag, Whirlpool. And now we have Samsung and LG and all of these other companies coming in. And it can be a little overwhelming for a consumer, especially if, you got 20 years out of something and, you say, hey, you know what, it ran its life course. Let's go buy a new one. And you haven't shopped for a dishwasher in forever, and you go to the big box store and you're looking around and you don't know what to buy. I mean, there's 20 brands in front of you and you're thinking, I need help, and the salesmen don't really know those products very well. Us technicians do, but most people don't think to call a technician friend and say, hey, what would you advise me to purchase here? Or, so yeah, and we absolutely understand the frustration part of it. When the dryer conks out and, your kids need clothes the next day, totally understand.
Can anything be fixed, or is there a lifespan to these appliances?
Well, anything can be fixed. The only time something really can't truly be fixed is when the parts go NLA, or what we would call no longer available. And that's unfortunate. They do discontinue the parts. And if we cannot get them, unfortunately, we can't make that repair. It typically only happens in appliances that are about 10 years or older. But it doesn't mean it can't happen to something that's 5 or 6 years old. It's rare, but it does unfortunately happen.
Appliances will generally last you, 8 years?
About 7 to 10 is your average projection nowadays. So sadly, the days of getting 20 years out of them are gone, unfortunately. The materials just aren't what they used to be. Mm-hmm. And when we made the transition from analog to digital, we used to not have computer boards on our dishwashers and our microwaves. You turned a dial, and those electronics are very sensitive, and they just don't have the lifespan that the old analog stuff did. And that's where we lose a lot of the lifetime in our appliances, So 20 years on a digital or excuse me, on an analog, totally, yeah, absolutely. But, we start throwing computers on everything, and it gets a little tricky.
I have some appliance fears. As I said, I just like to plug it in and I expect it to work. And when it goes out, there's always the fear, this is going to be a huge expense to repair, or should I just buy a new one? What's the best thing to do? Can you give us some advice on what we can check for and do first that might save us some money, or a service call that are kind of no-brainers for you, but we didn't know about them? Enlighten us, if you would.
Absolutely. One of the biggest pieces of advice I can give for a consumer would be to just relax for a moment and don't overreact. Don't jump on the phone and immediately call for somebody. You have to think about your modern appliances like they are a computer. Everybody that's worked on a computer, hey, this program froze or it's not responding. What do? You shut it down and you restart it. And most of the time it works just fine. So, if the lights on your washing machine are going crazy on you, turn off the power, let it sit for a minute or two, plug it back in and see if that resolves the issue. We go out all the time on dishwashers that they would say no operation, no power, doesn't work. And what we find, that's just unplugged underneath the sink. And maybe they were rooting around in there for a bottle of cleaner and accidentally bumped the cord and it fell out. What we see a lot of times too is that the cord from the dishwasher will be looped over the neck for your faucet. So when you pull that faucet down, it grabs your cord, pulls it up and out of the wall, and you have no idea the dishwasher doesn't work. So yeah, rebooting it or just resetting the power is the first thing you should ever do before you call service. And if it fixes it, fantastic. You saved yourself $100.
So just check and make sure that it is plugged in. This actually happened to me once. I had a dishwasher that sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. The same guy that figured out my microwave problem, when he pulled it out, he's like, it's kind of hanging in there. It's not plugged in. It's only plugged in halfway. That was the problem. And that was a huge relief to know that. So plug it in, guys. That's the first thing.
Make sure it has power. Absolutely.
So Chad, I'm going to give you some scenarios on different appliances. And
sure.
This is going to be kind of like a game show here. And you tell me, and this is going to be from my own experience. You tell me what happened, what the problem is, and how easy or not it is to fix it. Okay. So let's start with washing machine. You're doing a wash and all of a sudden the thing starts banging like mad and shaking and you feel like it's going to explode and come out from the wall. What happened?
Unbalanced load. Happens all of the time. Doesn't matter what kind of washing machine you have, if it's a top loader or a front loader, it's going to happen. Don't panic. Stop the unit. Manually balance out that load and just resume that cycle. You'll be just fine. Happens to everybody.
All right. And just for everyone, I did do a mominar on the YouTube channel about that. So you can check that one out there. It's like, I think it's called, Why is my washing machine making a loud banging noise? All right. What else is something that commonly goes wrong on the washing machine?
One of the common things we get is that the unit won't stop filling. And that is because what a customer has done, you'll notice on the back of the unit, it has guidelines for installing the drain hose for the washer. Well, that has to be up in the air. And the drain is on the bottom of the tub of the dishwasher. So what people do is they lay that on the ground down into a drain line or a drain hole in the floor. Well, now the washing machine just drains as fast as it can fill because it's just siphoning the water out. So we get it all the time where we just go and pick up a drain hose off the floor and hook it to a utility sink and problem solved. There was nothing wrong with the unit. They might have a unwanted water bill after that, but
Well, that's good. That never happened to me, but that's good information.
Very common.
When does this happen? Does that happen to people who maybe install the washing machine themselves?
Yeah, most of the time a professional installer will know better to do that. If they don't, well, they should, unfortunately they have some more learning to do. That's okay. But yes, typically it is a do-it-yourselfer. They bought it, they install it, unaware. They just put that line down on the floor and they just created a problem for themselves.
Let's go to the dryer. The dryer makes sounds. It's tumbling, but there's no heat.
Dryers are probably the only major appliance in your house that's going to require maintenance. And the number one fault of a dryer will always be venting. And we highly recommend that venting is checked and cleaned every year. You want to go around the side of your house. You be aware of where the dryer is venting on your house. Find where it typically is going to vent on the outside. Make sure that's free of lint buildup, or in the spring the birds come along and they like to nest in there. But there's lots of fuses and stuff like that can blow in the dryer from bad ventilation. That typically requires service. We don't want anybody to have a fire. That's scary. If you're using especially like fabric softener or dryer sheets in there, that's a wax buildup. And if you've ever lit a candle in your life, it burns. So please, maintenance on your dryer. If it's acting up whatsoever, probably call somebody. But again, the venting, we can't stress it enough. Always check it.
All right, so describe the venting. I am visualizing that sort of silver tinfoil thing that attaches from the dryer into the wall. Is that what you're speaking about?
Yes, correct. There are several different kinds of it out there. So rigid venting would be like a solid metal pipe. Dryer vent should always be a 4-inch pipe. And so rigid is going to be a solid piece of venting. Then we would have semi-rigid, it's going to be silver. It looks like aluminum. It is. But it works like a bendy straw. You pull it out, it's semi-rigid, it holds its shape. You can bend elbows in it and manipulate it. That's the easiest thing for a customer to use. That's what we recommend. If you're going to do it yourself, buy semi-rigid, you'll be able to work with it. The other is going to be that real floppy foil stuff. It looks like it's foil, but it's actually not. It's more of a mylar type material, which is plastic, and it is flammable. And we do not recommend that.
Semi-rigid is the best to go.
By far, absolutely the easiest thing to work with.
Is there a way that we can clean that or maintain that on our own, or is that something that needs to be professionally taken care of?
It's typically just held on with a couple of clamps. So you can undo those clamps. It pops right off. Everybody probably has a vacuum. Just go ahead and vacuum it out, shake it out, make sure it's clear. Doesn't need to be perfect. We're just avoiding buildup inside that venting. If it's really, really bad, get rid of it. Just start fresh with new. A piece of semi-rigid venting 10 feet long, probably under $10. So, $10 isn't worth the risk of having a fire or something. So.
Okay. Well, I've never changed that on my own, and I've never had a problem. So it's pretty rare. These things are going to last you a while. Are there signs if it's clogged? Is there a smell to it, or what happens?
Typically are not going to encounter a smell. What you're going to find is prolonged dry times. So say you're used to your, average load of towels taking about an hour to dry. you're going to come down and you're going to notice that they're still damp, that they haven't dried. And that will continue to get worse and worse and worse until you're running the dryer 2 full cycles to get anything dry. So prolonged dry times are a number one sign or a telltale sign of that your venting is becoming restricted and does need maintenance.
Now, what happens if it just doesn't dry at all? It goes through its whole cycle, you hear it tumbling, and then it beep, it's off, and it's just still wet.
For that, typically your dryer has encountered an issue. Again, there's a lot of safety fuses in that dryer. So what happens is your dryer gets too hot at some point in time, and that fuse opens up and disables your dryer from heating. So yes, if your dryer is running and not heating at all, likely you want to have somebody out to check that. Most of the time it did it for a reason.
And that's something that can be fixed pretty easily? Like you're not worried about it?
Generally, yeah. It's usually a minor fix. It's not, oh my gosh, you need a new dryer. No, we come out, replace the fuse, we do some routine checks, and we get you back in business.
Now, one last thing, which I think a lot of young people don't know about, is the lint trap in the dryer. What happens if you don't clean out that lint trap?
You're not going to dry your clothes. You're going to run into that prolonged dry time, and when it finally hits you that there's an issue, you're going to probably pull a sweater out of that thing because it'll pack up very quickly.
So have you gone to calls where they say, my dryer's not working? You get out there, open the lint trap, and it is just full of material.
Multiple times. And most of the time that happens when a customer is not aware of what the lint trap is because it's not in the same location as their previous dryer. And sadly, they may just be embarrassed to call or ask somebody. So they just keep using the dryer and ignore that until it has an issue. And this is usually always in a brand new dryer where it's less than 30 days old and we got a problem. We go out on a warranty call and it's just a customer instruct. We let them know, here's your lint trap, clean it.
Once you learn, now you know always.
Right. You're not going to make that mistake again. Right.
I also have a mom and R about dryers, how to use it and clean your lint trap. You can check that on the YouTube channel as well. Let's move on to dishwashers. The dishwasher is leaking soapy water on the floor. What happened?
Somebody put dishwashing soap in there.
This is such a fun game. That is exactly right. Why do I know this? Because personal experience.
Yes. Yeah. And it's happened to many, many people. A very, very common complaint we get. The important thing to understand about your dishwasher is that it doesn't make bubbles on its own. It can't. If it just fills with water and sprays water, we need an additive to create the suds. And dishwashing soap itself is designed to make minimal suds. Now, something like Dawn is the opposite. It's meant to make a lot of suds. And even a small amount in there is going to get you in trouble real quick. Yeah.
That is right. There is specific detergent for dishwashers that is completely different than what you would use to wash dishes by hand.
The trick there is to add a little bit of oil or something like a milk, even like if you have whole milk, throw a cup of that in there and it will kill those suds, and then you can cancel the cycle and drain it out. I prefer to use vegetable oil. Most people have it. Couple tablespoons of vegetable oil in there, run it for 2 minutes, cancel the cycle, problem solved. Suds are gone.
Where do you put the oil?
Pour it right on the top of those suds and start it back up, and it'll knock them right out for you.
So, I once was out and I got a text with a picture of suds on the floor and the message underneath it said, "What do I do?" And I'm like, oh boy. So I didn't know about the vegetable oil. What I did is I just, drained it.
Right.
So I don't remember if it's sudsed up a little bit. I suppose if you drain it and you don't get the residue out, it's going to bubble up again the next cycle.
It likely will, but usually that first cycle is the one that really gets you. The bubbles, like you said, they start pouring out onto your floor, set you into panic mode. Usually if you just drain it out, you've taken care of that problem. If it ever happens again or anybody listening, maybe open it up after you start running just to check so you don't repeat that issue with bubbles coming out on the floor again. So,
and you'll never make that mistake again once it happens.
Not that one either.
What happens if the dishwasher just doesn't drain. It doesn't go through the drain cycle, and has nothing to do with
Every
detergent.
dishwasher has a drain hose, and it's not uncommon for that to get blocked up. So what you're going to want to find, if it empties into the garbage disposal, that's probably the most common place for it to drain. Check that. It's usually held on by a simple little hose clamp. Again, 5/16 inch nut driver or a Phillips head most of the time will undo that clamp, pop it off, check right there. Can't tell you how many times we go out and you just got a little bit of gunk build up, and if the pump can't pump, it can't drain. So easy peasy, clean that out, hook it back up, you're back in business.
Do you guys do garbage disposals at all or no?
It depends on the company. We did many years ago. The problem with garbage disposals is that they're really not serviceable. If it breaks or encounters a problem, it's just a replacement. You're going to put in a new one. Check your manufacturer's warranty on it. A lot of times they're 1 to 5 years, somewhere in that realm. So if it's 4 years old, you have a 5-year warranty. Call, technician will come out. We're just going to swap it out for you. Now, on the other side of that, if it just hums, there's a little red button on the bottom of your garbage disposal. That's a reset. Check that first. If it doesn't do anything, odds are we jammed it up and we overloaded it and it trips that. It's just the same thing as your circuit breaker on your house. Flip
Right.
that switch, see if it works. Do not ever stick your hand in a dishwasher or the garbage disposal, please. That's a little scary. If you are, be 100% sure that it is unplugged. It cannot possibly turn on. Check for an object. You get a fork stuck in there, it's gonna cause that some issues.
You'll hear it too if you get a fork stuck in there.
Yeah, typically you will. Yeah.
But that is really good advice. I did not know about the reset button. Discovered that because somebody told me about it.
It also comes with a little tool. It's like a big Allen wrench, and that's to break it free. So if you look in the bottom right in the center of your garbage disposal, you're going to have like a hexagon shape down there. That's where that tool goes. So if you ever get a new garbage disposal and you're wondering what that wrench is for, it's to move the choppers back and forth manually and dislodge anything that's stuck in them. So Don't throw it in the garbage. It may save you a service call in the future.
All right, let's go to freezers. Your freezer stops freezing and your refrigerator is not as cold as it used to be. What's happening there?
These are a little bit more complicated complaints. Typically, if you are noticing a decline in your cooling, one of the most classic issues would be a defrost issue. So your fridge actually shuts down. We have an evaporator in there where all the cold is made. And that has to defrost itself so air can flow through it and deliver the coldness where it needs to go. If you have a slow decline in your cooling, you may be developing a frosting issue. The classic resolution for somebody just kind of doing it yourself is to clear that thing out, shut it down for 24 hours, doors open. You want it to breathe. Nobody wants to open up a stinky refrigerator the next day. And plug it back in and see if it works. And if just manually defrosting it gets you up and running again, fantastic. If it does start to act up again after that, though, we would typically recommend on a refrigerator to have somebody out on that, because those issues can tend to be a little bit complicated. And I don't want to just throw somebody underneath the bus and say, oh, easy fix for this. That's, but the good old fashioned defrost, 24 hours, doors open.
Okay. Now, I don't think they make refrigerators this way anymore, but there used to be coils exposed on the back.
Oh, they're still there.
Those would sometimes get full of dust, and I guess it would interfere with the cooling or the fan. It
needs to breathe. So any bit of dust buildup on there impedes the flow of air that's going underneath your refrigerator. The newer refrigerators, those coils are all condensed in a small little package, and the air is drawn in through the front of your refrigerator on that little grate you see on the bottom. And on a modern day refrigerator, all you really have to do is keep that little grate in the front free. Even if you do have the exposed coils that are on the back, make sure that they're not pressed against a wall or something like that. Breathing room, give it some space.
Just like everybody.
Yes.
What happens if your ice maker stops making ice?
First thing you want to do is, if you can't pull that ice bucket out of there, reach in there and see if you got a cube jammed in there. There's little fingers that go and scoop up the ice and dump it out for you. And if the cube turns sideways during that process, it locks up your ice maker, and there's nothing wrong with the ice maker. It just can't move. Ice makers are the number one problem for refrigerators, though. But yeah, check for a jammed cube. If it's not making ice other than that, probably going to want to call for service. If you just had some plumbing work on the house, make sure the water's turned on to the fridge too, because if it can't get water, it's not going to make ice.
Now, I want to kind of touch upon this because I just thought of it. When you deliver appliances, like refrigerators, I remember they have to be upright. You can't just lay them on their back. Is that still the case these days?
Typically is recommended. The reason we typically want them to be upright is that there's oil in that system. And when you lean it back, the oil's supposed to stay in your compressor. And if you lean it back, it leaves that compressor. You don't want to run your car engine with no oil in it. We don't want you to run your refrigerator compressor with no oil in it either. It's not good for it. And the compressor itself is mounted on springs. So if the little motor inside your compressor comes off, you're going to turn that fridge on and you're going to get a whole lot of racket. It's going to sound like somebody's beating around back there with a hammer. And that is not good. That means you need a new compressor. And you're talking probably a minimum of $1,000.
All right, what kind of things can go wrong with your refrigerator? Okay, the compressor goes out, and that is a big expense. What other things might go wrong that's kind of common and costly?
Some of the more simple repairs would be, we have fans in there to move the air around. If the fan stops moving air, you're going to notice, maybe your fresh food section isn't cooling anymore. Open your doors and listen. Do you hear that fan running? Hold the door switches closed on a modern day refrigerator. They really like the doors to be closed for the fan to run, so it's not just blowing the cold out of your refrigerator. But yeah, listen, do you hear fans running? If you don't hear a fan running, that's probably your problem right there.
Microwaves, we started with that. If it's not rotating, see if the turntable on-off button is engaged or not.
You're correct, yes. Microwaves are high voltage, and we typically do not recommend anybody that is not a professional ever work on a microwave. It does pose very serious risk for injury or death, and I don't want to scare anybody, but right. It is just something we absolutely don't ever recommend a homeowner doing. If the microwave is running and it's not heating your food, call for service. You can always, of course, do the classic unplug it, plug it back in. Generally not going to be the resolution for the repair on a microwave, worth a shot. But yeah, if the microwave encounters a problem, please call a professional, because there aren't too many tips or tricks for the microwave. It can be a little scary to work on.
Well, that's good to know. So of all the appliances, that's the one to proceed with the most caution.
Yes, it's absolutely very dangerous to work on.
Are there any other appliances I missed?
Oven.
What goes wrong with the ovens?
A common one is like the glass cooktops are really popular nowadays. People think that the glass is discolored when all it needs is cleaned. The ovens can be a little bit tricky. Again, an electric element is 240 volts, dangerous. So an electric oven, if it's not heating, typically going to recommend that you have a professional look at that. Gas is a little bit different. The most common thing that's going to give you an issue on your gas oven is an igniter, or what we call a glow bar. Typically an easy replacement. You can find videos of people showing you how to do that. Please understand you're playing with gas, and we don't want to have an issue there. I've seen scary things where people have mounted them backwards, and now if the igniter doesn't go in the correct spot, it doesn't hit the gas fast enough, and you flood the oven with gas, and then you get this big whoosh because you have too much fuel in there, and when it lights, it can scare you.
Yes, that's true. And also on the gas stovetop, when you ignite, it makes that little click, 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 click sound. Yes. If it's still clicking, that means gas is still coming out. So once the stovetop ignites, once there's a flame there, you just continue turning the knob until the clicking stops, and that shuts off the gas.
Yes. A lot of people, if they transition to a gas oven or cooktop from an electric, is not an uncommon complaint for them to say that all of the burners click when only one knob is turned. And that's actually by design. If one of your cooktop burners is actually leaking gas, by turning any one of those knobs and sending the spark, you're going to notice that burner light. And you're going to say, wait a second, I wasn't lighting that burner. But it's a little safety technique by them to say, hey, you have a little gas leaking here. You might want to address that issue. But it confuses people because they don't understand that all the burners are supposed to click generally all at the same time. So don't confuse yourself. They're all clicking. They're just doing their job.
And heed the clicking sound, because that means gas is escaping. And once you
Correct.
have your flame, move the knob so that clicking sound stops, so you do not get continued gas flowing into your kitchen. Also have a webinar on that on the YouTube channel. Now, Chad, let's talk a little bit about Fred's Appliance and what you do. Tell us about the school, first of all.
The school, well, unfortunately, from the COVID and all the stuff that's going on, we are shut down for in-person classes right now. When the time is right, we'll certainly go back to hands-on training. There's no better way to learn, especially in the repair field, than to actually get your hands on it and do it. We offer an online academy, and it only right now is dryers. We have electric dryers and we have gas dryers, but it's unique. It walks you through the whole testing and, diagnostics. It shows you what every single component is. It tells you how to take it off, exactly how to diagnose that. And we even kind of show you what a customer complaint would relate to that component's failure. So if a customer says, hey, my dryer's not heating, we will show you exactly all the components that would relate to that complaint. The course itself is self-paced. You're not pushed to do it. If you want to finish it in a week, finish it in a week. If you want to take a year to do it, that's on you. Your employer might not be so happy that you took a year to complete it.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I really want to convey that there is no right or wrong way to go through life. And there are opportunities in anything that you want to do. You told me a little bit before I hit the record button that there is a lot of demand in this field, and there is no lack of employment or opportunities. So tell me a little bit about appliance technicians.
Well, we are kind of the forgotten technicians. As we discussed, most people know what an electrician is, or a carpenter, or a plumber, but most people don't think about going into a career field as an appliance technician. And I would say over the past 10 years now, the field has absolutely exploded. There is such a high demand for it. We here at Fred's Appliance are inquired with all the time about all these manufacturers that want us to get them employees, and we just can't pump them out fast enough. 20 students a class, I guarantee you every one of them gets a job. We're a hybrid in a sense that we're like a crossbreed between electricians and plumbers. We got to deal with all of that. And I encourage people to think about it. If you're in high school, you don't know what you want to do after high school, this may be something to think about. I can probably personally guarantee you that there are job opportunities for you. And, you'll make fine money. You'll absolutely earn a living wage. Don't be afraid about that. The industry itself is just, we absolutely cannot fill jobs fast enough.
What's the process? Let's say you're in high school or you're changing careers, whatever. You decide this is something I want to do. How does one go about that? Because in my mind, before I even spoke with you, I didn't know if you just went and apprenticed with someone, but I didn't realize there was a school. Is that the fastest track to get on?
To date, it's probably still being an apprentice. You're going to inquire with the company. They will onboard you, and you will generally ride with them on the road for maybe a month, up to 6 months, whatever their own personal program is. That's typically the most common way to do it. We kind of broke ground a little bit as far as the academy goes. We don't turn on our TVs and see, come become an appliance technician today. You say, hey, join the plumbing trade or become an engineer or a carpenter, but you don't see it about appliance technicians. And we're trying to break through and show that this is absolutely an opportunity. And, if you go through our academy, you're going to get a job. That's, and a lot of the people are sponsored. So if you go to so-and-so's appliance repair, they will send you here for that 3-week course and pay for you to learn. So you don't pay for it out of pocket a lot of times. I'd say 70+% of our students are sponsored.
So these companies, basically, they're investing in you. So they'll send you to these schools to get the best knowledge that you can, and then you're going to do a good job for them. How long is the program?
The program is 3 weeks. It's about a 50-50 split between, book learning. You need to learn the basics. You have to learn basic electricity, get your fundamentals, learn your tool set if you're not familiar with it. And then the rest of it is hands-on. We like to get the students here as much hands-on as possible. So when we're on, training in person, I am going to encourage my students to get through that book training as fast as you can. Don't worry about getting straight A's. We want you to get your hands on. That way you can get straight A's out in the field, because that's where it really matters.
If you have no knowledge, like me, I have no knowledge about appliances. Can I go to your school and then after 3 weeks have enough information to get a job, or would I be an apprentice for somebody?
You're typically always going to be an apprentice. Again, we had mentioned how much the industry has expanded as far as your options in appliances. And that's the first thing that's going to be overwhelming to somebody that's new to the appliance repair industry, is the overwhelming amount of products there are to work on. So it takes time to really learn that.
So the school is just for dryers right now?
The online courses are. The in-person classes go through everything. You're going to learn from, refrigeration, ovens, microwaves, stoves, the whole spectrum.
Is that a 3-week course, the in-person as well?
Yes, it is. The in-person's 3-week course. And again, the online courses are kind of a do-it-yourself at your own pace.
And where is your school located?
We are located in Madison, Ohio.
So the best thing to do for someone who wants to get into this field is to be an apprentice and then hopefully have the employer send them to school to get some more training.
We would recommend it. The more knowledge you have, the better your chances of succeeding out in the field, and expediting getting you up on your own 2 feet and operating on your own as a technician. And, once you're not on your apprenticeship anymore, you're going to make more money. Absolutely, knowledge is power. Learn as much as you can, and it's going to benefit you.
This was a very educational conversation. I actually really had fun playing the game show with you. And by the way, he got all the answers right. How can we find Fred's Appliance?
fredsappliance.com. It's going to take you right to us. If you are interested in the Academy, it's going to be learning.fredsappliance.com. Takes you straight to the Academy webpage, and it's pretty straightforward. It'll guide you right through it.
I'll have all that listed in the show notes. Chad, thank you very, very much for joining today and sharing this information with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Come on, that was fun. I usually do shows where I have a pretty solid understanding of what my guest is speaking about, but I really love learning myself and putting my own fears to rest. It just goes to show you that nothing is really scary. Whatever's holding you back is just fear of the unknown. The unknown is so dark, but it's nothing to be afraid of. You just need to turn the light on so you can see. I hope this episode shed some light and brought some clarity and maybe lighted a path for you. If you have any questions about appliances or you want to know more about being an appliance tech, reach out to Fred's Appliance Academy. All of the links to do so can be found in the show notes for this episode at howtolife.com/030. I mentioned that I have a few appliance situation mominars that I have made. If you like visual information, check those out. My YouTube channel is called How to Life, and the appliance videos are listed in playlists. I put out a mominar, which is a seminar given by a mom, about once a week. They're very short video tutorials on how to do specific basic life skills. There's no chit-chat, just step-by-step instruction. I invite you to subscribe. And please subscribe to this podcast as well for more in-depth fun discussions like this one. Thank you so much for listening in today. I really hope you got some value and enjoyment. I had so much fun with this show. On that note, be well, everyone. As we head into Thanksgiving this week, count your blessings, express your gratitude, and share your love. It'll come back to you tenfold. Have no fear. You got this.